Johnny Cash comes to mind when you think of the most famous country artists from the 1960s. Known as the Man in Black, his unique style brought him worldwide fame. Unfortunately, Johnny's wealth and fame couldn't hide the secrets of his past. Shortly before her death, Johnny's first wife, Vivian Cash, finally revealed the shocking truth about Johnny. What was the truth behind the glamour? We delve into the life, career, and reality of Johnny Cash. Early life and career. Johnny Cash was born J.R. Cash to Carrie Clovery and Ray Cash in Kingsland, Arkansas on the 26th of February 1932. Of a total of 7 siblings, he was the fourth. Johnny had an amusing backstory. His dad wanted him to be named Ray, but his mom wanted him named John. After much back and forth, they settled on J.R. After Johnny graduated from high school, he was required to change his name to John R. Cash to enroll in the Air Force. This was because using initials as a first name was not allowed. Then, in 1955, he became known as Johnny Cash after signing with Sun Records. There were many hardships in Johnny's early childhood. He and his family uprooted their lives in 1935 when he was just 3 years old and settled in Dyess, Arkansas, a New Deal colony established by President Franklin D. Roosevelt in response to the Great Depression. The original intention of the facility was to provide low-income families with an opportunity to work on property that may perhaps be theirs. The cotton fields were Johnny's first job when he was just 5 years old. Because the family would frequently sing together while they worked, he began to appreciate singing at this time. Dyess and the Cash family farm were unfortunate victims of flooding when he was a kid. But he would write, 5 feet high and rising on this incident thereafter. Tragic events would recur in 1944, with the death of Johnny's older brother Jack. An unprotected table saw nearly peeled him in half as he worked. He fought for a week, but his wounds were too severe, and he eventually died. A feeling of foreboding overcame Johnny, his mother, and even Jack that day, as he recounted in his memoirs. Their anxious mother begged Jack to take a day off from work and go fishing with Johnny. Jack insisted on working that day since the family needed the money. Because Johnny and Jack had been so close, Johnny was devastated by Jack's death. Even after expressing his hope to see his brother in paradise, he frequently brought up the remorse he felt about the event. In Johnny's recollections of his boyhood, gospel music and the radio predominated over the catastrophes that befell them. His mother and a childhood buddy were the ones who taught him guitar. Plus, he started performing and composing his music at the tender age of 12. He performed on a radio station in Arkansas while he was a high school student. Unfortunately, he had to put his singing career on wait since he joined the Air Force on the 7th of July, 1950, not long after the Korean War broke out. After completing his basic training at Lackland AFB in San Antonio, Texas, and his technical training at Brooks AFB, Johnny was sent to Landsberg, West Germany, to serve with the 12th Radio Squadron Mobile of the U.S. Air Force Security Service. In San Antonio, he met the lovely Vivian Liberto, with whom he had a brief romance before she left. He exchanged thousands of letters with her while serving overseas, so they stayed in touch. Johnny intercepted signals from the Soviet Army while working as a Morse code operator in West Germany. Not only that, but rumor has it that the news of Joseph Stalin's downfall reached Johnny while he was working. His daughter Roseanne would reveal that her father had repeated this tale several times during the years. Johnny formed his first band, the Landsberg Barbarians, while still a student at Landsberg because he loved music. He was discharged with honor as a staff sergeant on the 3rd of July, 1954, and he went back to Texas. A noticeable scar on the right side of his jaw developed as a result of his service. It found out that the scar was caused by surgery to remove a cyst, yet later theories would speculate on its cause. They were married at a San Antonio church by Vivian's paternal uncle, Father Franco Liberto, not long after he arrived. It wasn't until 1954, when Johnny and Vivian relocated to Memphis, Tennessee, that his career took off. Upon their arrival, Johnny put his studies for a career as a radio broadcaster on hold to sell appliances. He would perform as part of the Tennessee Two, a duet consisting of Marshall Grant on bass and Luther Perkins on guitar, throughout the evenings. Soon, Johnny worked up the courage he needed to visit the Sun Records studio. Hoping to get a recording contract, he auditioned for Sam Phillips, belting out one gospel song after another, only to learn that he no longer recorded gospel music. Sam was rumored to have told Johnny to go home and sin, then come back with a song I can sell. However, In a 2002 interview, Johnny denied that Sam had made any comment of the sort. Thankfully, Johnny was able to win Sam over, with new songs sung in his early rockabilly style. In 1955, he created his first recordings at Sun, Hey Porter, and Cry Cry Cry, both of which were released in late June. They were both met with astounding success on the country hit parade. However, it was Cry 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 that became his first country hit, reaching number 14 on the country charts. Johnny's rise to fame was heightened following the release of Folsom Prison Blues that same year. This song was well received as it showcased his unique and what would become his signature style, blending country, folk, and rockabilly. After enjoying success in 1955, the next year came with an even bigger hit with I Walk the Line, a song that topped the country charts and even crossed over to the pop charts, reaching number 17. Thanks to these early successes with Sun Records, Johnny became established as a major force in the music industry. He was also known as the Man in Black during this period for his unique voice and stage presence. In contrast to his fellow country singers, he typically wore all black, including his boots and rhinestones. Johnny became one of the biggest names in country music in the 60s. After signing with Columbia Records in 1958, he kept releasing successful singles. Hits such as Don't Take Your Guns to Town and Ring of Fire helped him establish himself as a significant figure in the country music industry. In addition, Johnny Cash's live album Johnny Cash at Folsom Prison, which was released in 1968 and was recorded at Folsom State Prison, was a huge hit and is today considered to be among the very greatest live albums that have ever been released. Coincidentally, Johnny Cash's television program, The Johnny Cash Show, had its debut around the same time. As a result of the event, which featured performances by noteworthy artists of the day, he gained greater popularity than he had previously had. Given that his name was everywhere at the time, Johnny had the impression that he was nearly unstoppable. The range and depth of Johnny's musical abilities are demonstrated by the fact that he has made a large number of albums and singles. The following are some examples. Notable works include San Quentin, Bitter Tears, and Ballads of the American Indian. For this CD, the popular song A Boy Named Sue was recorded live at a correctional facility. Unfortunately, Johnny was going to have to deal with a lifetime of issues, one of which was addiction. This was a tragic fact. His life was never the same again, even though he continued to create music that affected others. Given the widespread public attention that Johnny has received for his struggles with addiction to hot medication, it is remarkable that he has been able to continue performing music at all. They struggle with addiction as a consequence. During that period, vocalists would frequently increase their speed of singing to improve their performances. It has been stated by a few of these celebrities that it assists them in getting through the long days of traveling and playing at music venues and promotional events that are organized at the last minute. When Johnny's song I Walk the Line reached number 1 on the country charts in 1966, he was on the verge of a musical career that would go through exciting highs and shattering lows. His problem with substance abuse nearly wrecked his career on several occasions, and he was on the verge of having a tremendously successful career. Anyone aware of Johnny is likely to be familiar with the bizarre account of his attempt to smuggle 600 amphetamines and nearly 500 tranquilizers across the border into Mexico. Consequently, he found himself in a great deal of legal difficulty as a result of that incident. Johnny went to great measures, including attempting to bribe a law enforcement officer, after discovering that he owned a significant quantity of pharmaceuticals. However, he was unsuccessful in his attempt. He instead spent the night in prison, where he received a harsh reprimand for squandered potential and how his decisions were affecting his life and the lives of others around him. If such was the case, how was his addiction impacting his personal life and occupation? Please watch the video with us to learn more details. Personal life. It is shown in the 2005 film Walk the Line that Johnny is fighting a severe addiction to happy juice and illegal narcotics. In his downward spiral, he acts sloppily around his fellow tourmates, puts a strain on his relationships with his first and second wife, and eventually distances himself from his children. Addiction is a threat to more than just his professional life. It's far worse than that. He turned irritable, confused, and unhappy. It was unfortunate that Johnny's battle with addiction would be a long and painful one, spanning years. Although his first wife Vivian did say that his struggles with alcohol and drugs were a major factor in their breakup, she didn't tell the full story. Additionally, Johnny's marriage to Vivian would come to an end due to his involvement in a love affair with June Carter. While traveling with the Carter family, he crossed paths with June, who happened to be the daughter of the powerful Maybelle Carter. June and Johnny became closer after Johnny's divorce, and they were married in 1968. An infamous song by Johnny Cash, "The Ring of Fire," is supposedly inspired by this troubled affair, which also gave rise to the film Walk the Line. Perhaps motivated by that intense desire, Johnny tried to quit many times, but he had a hard time staying sober. Attempts to overcome Johnny's substance abuse started in earnest in the 1970s, and he had periods of success. The time immediately after the birth of his sole child with June, John Carter Cash, was a pivotal one. Johnny remained clean for 7 years after John was born, which was an incredible feat that demonstrated his dedication to his family. But that abstinence wasn't going to last. Once again, he was dragged back into the clutches of addiction's vicious cycle. Things were made more difficult by the difficulties in his personal life. John Carter, June's son, claims that his mother struggled with issues including excessive shopping and prescription medication addiction. Despite everything, their 5-year marriage was a complicated stew of strife and profound, unwavering love. Their son commented on his parents' relationship in a 2007 Reuters interview, stating, "My parents' love for one another lasted throughout their whole existence. They persisted. Without reservation or condition, they embraced one another." Johnny maintained his compassion, creativity, and humility in the face of adversity. He was a wonderful father who struggled with addiction, according to his children. But it didn't mean his addiction didn't affect them. Not long after his father had signed into the same rehabilitation center, Johnny's son checked himself in as well. In a 2007 book, he revealed the harsh truth of having two parents who struggled with addiction. He wrote it after his parents passed away. In the end, Johnny was successful in beating his addictions. He frequently discussed in his latter years the importance of his religion and connection to a higher force in his road to recovery. He enjoyed telling people, "You can be redeemed," according to those who knew him well. A narrative of more than simply fame and music, Cash's life and legacy revolve around this subject of personal redemption. He battled his demons and ultimately found a way to overcome them. It was an adventurous romance between Johnny and Vivian. Lots to digest here, including Johnny's affair with June Carter and the hostility she received because of her ethnicity, Vivian and Johnny's early days. Vivian shared in her memoir, "I Walked the Line, My Life with Johnny," that she met Johnny on July 18th, 1951, at a roller skating rink in San Antonio when he had asked her for a skate close to when it was time to wrap up. Johnny wasn't the best skater, but he made up for it by singing along to the Rosemary Clooney tune that was playing at the time. A whirlwind romance sparked between Johnny and Vivian before the Air Force sent Johnny off to Germany. In a romantic gesture, he carved "Johnny Loves Vivian" into a bench along San Antonio's Riverwalk. They promised to keep in touch, and they did, writing each other letters filled with sweet words, yet these letters foreshadowed the troubles ahead. Johnny's accounts of drinking and infidelity, accompanied by remorseful promises to do better, would become a troubling pattern. When Johnny returned from his service in July of 1954, Vivian and her family gathered at the Cash home in Dyess, Arkansas, and drove to the West Memphis airport to welcome him. They married on August 7th of that year at St. Anne's Catholic Church in San Antonio. Vivian recalls what she calls an hour that would change everything. According to her, it was the day that Johnny auditioned for Sam Phillips at Sun Records. Excitedly, he came home announcing, "Baby, we're cutting a record." At the time, Vivian was 6 months pregnant with their first child, a daughter named Roseanne. The song "Cry, Cry, Cry" was written by Johnny in a mere 15 minutes following that. After a few days, he and the Tennessee Two were officially signed to Sun Records as the label's newest artists. Johnny then joined the ranks of other Sun Records icons, such as Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Roy Orbison, with whom he went on tour after achieving this level of popularity. Through Vivian's cherished recollection, Johnny and I had a particular fondness for Elvis. He was a very wonderful person in every way, and he became a very close friend. It is unfortunate that the trips also brought up a new wave of attention, which included interest from women. When Vivian inquired about if Johnny ever had feelings of temptation, he calmed her by assuring her that he would walk the line for her. Johnny requested Vivian to assist him in writing the popular song I Walk the Line as they were driving together. This reassurance served as the inspiration for the song. Following its release in the spring of 1956, it immediately rose to the top of the charts, just in time for the birth of their second daughter, Kathy. As a natural consequence, Johnny's growing recognition resulted in a shift in the environment. They had been convinced to go to California by Stu Carnell, who had recently taken over as manager. According to Vivian, who wrote the book, at this point, she just agreed with anything Johnny wanted to do and could not say that she had much of a thought of her own. The Cash family relocated to Encino, California, in the summer of 1958, around 1 month after the birth of their third daughter, Cindy. They did this by acquiring a house that had been owned by Johnny Carson in the past. This relocation signaled the beginning of what Vivian sees as a hazardous stream that lies beneath their lives, which, despite appearances, appears to be exciting. Johnny's drinking became more intense, and he started taking pills as well. Vivian made the observation that Johnny began to accept the exact things that he had previously criticized in his love letters as being unclean and disgusting. According to her, Johnny began to accept all the things that he had previously considered dirty and unclean. Cindy Cash, who was a young boy at the time, recalled that her parents only fought once, but she remembered her mother's constant worries and sleepless nights, which she kept hidden from the children when they were young. Reflecting on the past, Cindy realized that drugs were the main cause of Johnny's terrible era, a burden that Vivian had to bear painfully. She had thought that relocating to Casita Springs in the late summer of 1961, not long after the birth of their last child, Tara would be able to curb Johnny's destructive conduct. Disappointingly, that did not happen. However, Johnny had to add adultery to the list of things that led to their breakup. It is not difficult to understand that Johnny's troubles would eventually lead to their separation. Vivian claims that the stimulant and June Carter were the causes of the dissolution of her marriage. It wasn't long before she learned from other people that June was the more persistent of the two threats. In a short amount of time, Vivian found herself relegated to the background, as she was left behind in Ventura to raise her 4 girls with Johnny, while he and June rose to prominence as the most successful country music celebrities. Many people believed that their relationship was like a fairy tale, which resulted in Vivian being left in the dust and caused her to be forgotten. For several years, she was relegated to the status of a mere footnote, with the only people who remembered her being those who were interested in Johnny's history with her or those in Nashville who wanted her to be completely removed from his narrative. However, Vivian is now able to express her opinion. She provides a riveting tale that is both tragic and inspirational in her memoir, which serves as a much-needed reminder of the cost of fame. Vivian admits in the book that she has never stopped loving Johnny, and she muses with a bittersweet sense of nostalgia on what their life may have been like if it weren't for the narcotics and June's entrance. During the book, she describes how, not long after they relocated to Casita Springs, everything started to fall apart. Vivian was left behind to take care of their girls, while Johnny's reputation grew, and he went on tour, frequently with June. If only I had been able to go with him rather than staying here and having 4 children, things would have turned out differently. In her lifelong friendship with Alice Smith of Ventura, she frequently confided in her. Throughout her life, she has conveyed this opinion on several occasions. In May of 2005, Vivian passed away at the age of 71, just after she had finished writing her novel that detailed her life with Johnny. The film Walk the Line, which won an Academy Award in 2005, had Johnny, played by Joaquin Phoenix, and June, played by Reese Witherspoon, in a romantic love tale. Her novel, in many ways, acts as a response to the film. Within the context of the movie, Johnny is depicted as the dogged pursuer, while June is portrayed as the reluctant object of his passion. Vivian, on the other hand, presents another viewpoint, asserting that June was the one who chased Johnny. She describes a particularly dramatic encounter that took place behind the scenes, during which June reportedly said to her, "Vivian, he will be mine." This event, according to Anne Sharpstein, who was Vivian's co-author, encompassed a significant portion of the anguish and rage that Vivian had carried for many years. As far as Cindy is concerned, the story that her mother told is accurate. Since June entered the scene, she has been adamant about having a father figure, and she has done all in her power to make that happen. Cindy continued by saying that June had displayed such a high level of availability that Johnny ultimately went back for her. Vivian's book also sheds light on the unpleasant reality of hearing June say that she was raising Johnny's girls when Vivian herself was the one who was stuck with the task of rearing those daughters. In addition to this, she asserts that June is responsible for Johnny's addiction by providing him with illicit substances and by herself dealing with addiction. Since their initial meeting in 1958, Vivian's perspective of June has been affected by several factors. The warning that she received from her senses was, "This woman was a threat to my family." We were in the year 1955. Even though she was unable to identify the exact moment when Johnny's affair started, she finally found that she could no longer ignore the clues. Vivian first took a firm stance of denial. Once all was said and done, she was the lady that Johnny had pledged to be faithful to. Nevertheless, fractures began to appear. While Johnny was spending more time away from home, the rumors that were being spread by his family and bandmates became increasingly loud. There were also the receipts, which showed that thousands of dollars had been spent on extravagant presents for June. According to Vivian, the experience of losing her spouse to another woman was a humiliating and terrible one. To even consider the possibility of Johnny loving another person was nearly intolerable. She wished, with the benefit of hindsight, that she had gone to greater lengths to salvage their marriage and to regain the love that they had previously enjoyed. Even though she finally found it within her heart to forgive June, she dwells on the fact that she should have been just as determined to save it as June was to destroy it. The remorse that Vivian felt the most was not about her marriage or the other lady. Rather, it was about something very different. It was the rage that she had been harboring for such a long time. Johnny departed without much of a farewell being exchanged. He ultimately expressed his regret to their girls, but he did not apologize to Vivian. If she could have heard those words from him, she would have done everything to do so. "I'm sorry." It was in May of 2003 when June ultimately passed away. During the summer of that year, Vivian paid Johnny a visit in Tennessee and revealed that she was working on a book about their love story together. The question that he asked was, "What took you so long?" The title of her book, which was proposed by her friends, bore a profound resonance with her. "You were the one who walked the line all these years raising 4 daughters, they often reminded her. While Vivian was in the summer of 1966, she filed for divorce, and the divorce was formalized in the late year of 1967. She was not the prototypical example of a broken ex-wife, which is a relief. She plunged herself wholeheartedly into the life of the community with undying passion. In addition to volunteering at the county hospital and providing financial assistance to a facility in Los Angeles that serves unwed mothers, she was the president of the Garden Club of San Buenaventura for 3 consecutive terms. Vivian was held in high esteem by all who knew her, whether they knew her intimately or only in passing with her. She had a knack for decorating and was a lovely hostess, always prepared with her famous Afghans and homemade goodies. She was polite, kind, down to earth, and socially engaged. She was also a decorating master. Considering that we are now up to speed on Vivian's recollections of their connection, let us take a look at some of Johnny's most notorious follies and how they ultimately led to his tragic end, as well as Johnny Cash's downfall and evil side. The mystique that Johnny has created is not only about his music, but also about the brazen and defiant attitude that he had. The mystery surrounding him is only heightened by the escapades and experiences he has in Ventura County. He was a frequent visitor to Lake Casitas, where he claimed to be fishing. However, his antics frequently eclipsed any fishing that he might have done at the lake. "Ring of Fire," Johnny's most famous song, was reportedly written by Johnny during one of these fishing trips, as stated in the book written by his ex-wife, Vivian. Nevertheless, his trips were not just to cast a line. In the past, he had a reputation for being a hard partier, and after a few drinks, he would occasionally pass out on his yacht. Randy King, who happens to be the manager of Lake Casitas Marina, fondly recalled the times when he used to visit the marina, consume an excessive amount of alcohol, and then fall over the edge. Randy frequently needed to make phone calls to resolve Johnny's misadventures, and someone was always coming to retrieve him. Cindy has a strong recollection of those frantic searches, and she mentions that one incident that stands out in her mind is Johnny's habit of playing Christmas music loudly from loudspeakers in his yard. In the past, Helen Boyd, whose husband Jeffrey served as a sheriff's deputy, was charged with the responsibility of requesting that Johnny reduce his volume. During the conversation, Jeffrey recalled that Cindy chuckled about how distraught her father was when he was instructed to cease playing the music. She asserted that he sincerely believed he was contributing positively to the community by doing what he was doing. Unfortunately, Johnny's run-ins with the law weren't limited to noise complaints. In June 1965, he accidentally started a forest fire near Alder Creek, which became known as the Adobe Fire. The blaze took a week to control and required aerial firefighting efforts. Carl Rivenberg, then a U.S. Forest Service officer, issued Johnny a citation. Rivenberg remembered arriving at the scene and finding Johnny's truck camper, affectionately named Jesse, parked on the side of the road. In his 1997 autobiography, Johnny himself recounted the incident with his characteristic bravado, claiming he went to court full of amphetamines and arrogance. He dismissively recalled the possibility of the fire harming 44 California condors, asserting in his deposition, "I don't give a damn about your yellow buzzards." After some time had passed, the United States Fish and Wildlife Service made it clear that the condors had most likely been driven away rather than killed. Additionally, Johnny said that he was the first private individual to successfully sue the federal government for igniting a forest fire. However, the Forest Service disputes this assertion. In the beginning, Johnny was given a punishment of almost $125,000, but it was eventually lowered to $82,000, and insurance companies paid for the expenditures. Not all of Johnny's mistakes were as spectacular as the ones he made. In the late 1960s, Randy Boswell, who was 16 years old at the time, recalls coming across a black Cadillac that had been stuck and a Johnny who was staggering. Randy, who had previously sponsored Boswell's Little League team, provided Johnny with a ride to a gas station, recognizing him from his sponsorship of the team. Although Johnny made mistakes, his positive efforts were sometimes overlooked. First and foremost, he was a parent who was supportive of his children, and he also conducted charity events for local charities. The book written by Vivian also stresses Johnny's attendance at his family's developmental milestones, as well as his financial assistance for his family. Cindy reminisced about the happy times she spent with her father on Christmas mornings. For example, he would sometimes leave footprints in the ashes of the fireplace to convince his children that Santa had been. Vivian expressed her desire to remember Johnny as a loyal spouse and loving parent before she passed away. She emphasized the difference between Johnny's dark side and the character that was formed by his problems with addiction. From her perspective, Johnny Cash of her personal experiences are distinct from the picture that the general public has of the troubled outlaw. As a result of problems brought on by diabetes, Johnny passed away on the 12th of September, 2003, which was 4 months after June's departure. Despite all of his shortcomings, it seemed as though Vivian loved him truly and profoundly. Even though, unfortunately, he never expressed regret for his actions, we can only pray that they all find the serenity that is beyond all understanding. Were you informed that Johnny Cash has this aspect of his personality? Post your thoughts in the comments section below. We appreciate you watching. Play the video that is currently playing on your screen to see further videos that are fascinating. In addition, be sure to ring the bell, like, and subscribe to the channel so that you are alerted whenever a new video is uploaded.